Hello everybody, I'm back, and today we're going to look at another Reddit unresolved mystery. So this one is by Dahara Hovich. It was posted 14 days ago and is a pretty good read. This is the mysterious disappearance of the Beaumont children. This is one of the most mysterious stories in Australian forensics. 3 children disappeared without a trace in a public place. The whole country participated in their search. Volunteers patrolled the streets. Witnesses testified for years. Police tapped phones and searched every inch of the beach. But all to no avail. We are talking about the Beaumont children, the mystery of whose disappearances have never been solved for half a century. January 26, 1966. That day was unbearably hot outside. The air temperature reached 40 degrees centigrade. But even this could not stop the festivities. Locals would gather in families around large tables, enjoying roasted turkey, and then take to the streets to sing songs and dance. The country celebrated the main public holiday, Australia Day. On the morning of the same day, in the suburbs of Adelaide, a clothing and linen salesman, Jim Beaumont, was going to work, meeting in the nearby town of Snowtown. His wife planned to visit a friend and 3 children, Jane, Arna, and Grant, asked to go to the nearest beach. None of the adults were alarmed by this way of spending leisurely time. 9-year-old Jane, the eldest daughter, was responsible enough to look after the younger ones. Yes, the children went to the coast quite often. Many of them knew them there. Therefore, Mother, Nancy Beaumont, seeing the children go to the bus stop, once again reminded the children the rules of safety in public places and behaviors with strangers, gave money for travel, and wished them a good time. Beaumont left the house at 10 a.m., and at 10:10 the bus with the children left towards the beach. The children promised their mother that they would be back for dinner. When noon came, the children were not at home. Nancy was worried, but assumed that the guys might simply not have caught the right bus, so they would come back on the next one. In order not to miss each other, she went to wait for them at the bus stop. But there was no one on the next bus. It was not like the Beaumont children. The eldest, Jane, recently confirmed her adulthood and responsibility. Nancy remembered how the other day she and her husband went to visit friends, leaving the children alone, and Jane managed to feed everyone and put them to bed, and the adults left a note. "Dear Mom and Dad, I'm about to go to bed. The time is now 9 o'clock in the evening. Changed Grant's diaper, so don't worry about it. Grant went to sleep in his own bed, so now one of you will have to sleep with Arna. And although our rooms are not that good, I hope you will be comfortable as we are. Good night to both of you. Jane. P.S. I hope you had a good time. P.P.S. I hope you don't mind, Daddy, that I took the radio into my room." To understand how to proceed, worried Nancy decided to wait for her husband. Upon his return, his parents decided to go to the same beach. There they combed the entire coastline twice, up and down, but there were no traces of the children. Late that evening, Jim and Nancy drove to the police station. First days of searching. The Beaumont children were reported missing the next morning. The police considered 2 versions, abduction or an accident, so they immediately began search activities. To confirm or deny the versions of the accident, the authorities decided to look for children's things. Their mother gave them tips: bright clothes, lots of toys, the book Little Women. The entire beach of Glenelg was cordoned off. The police investigated every meter, but things seemed to evaporate. Not a single piece of evidence was ever found. The version with an accident could be postponed, and the police began to search for the kidnappers. All the phones of the Beaumont family were wiretapped in case the perpetrators demanded a ransom. At the same time, government services combed all possible routes for children in order to understand where else they could be found. Beaumont's parents were in despair. Jim was very aggressive and distant. He refused to listen to the police and the arguments of his acquaintances. The man tried to take control of the situation. He went to the neighbors, collected evidence, looked for clues. Nancy fell into depression. The mother blamed herself for what happened, walked from side to side for hours, whispering, "I lost all the children." She was called an ambulance several times. The doctor gave her strong sedatives. Relatives and friends gathered at the family's home to keep the desperate parents from going crazy. By the end of the week, almost everyone in Australia knew what had happened in the Beaumont family. People voluntarily went out to patrol the streets, looking for the children's things. Taxi drivers drove all around the streets, peering into children's faces. Residents of the suburbs of Adelaide searched basements, attics, garages, factories, and abandoned buildings. The mysterious disappearance of the Beaumont children attracted so much attention and sympathy that it seems that they were not a single newspaper where photographs of the children would not be printed on the front page. All of Australia prayed for the lives of the 3 children. Man in the blue swimsuit. In a few days, the police managed to restore the route of the children and find witnesses. On January 21st at 10:10, Jane, Arna, and Grant boarded the right bus. This was confirmed by the bus driver and one of the passengers. They were able to describe the appearance of the children and their clothes. After about 10 minutes, the kids got off the Glengold stop and went to the beach. What the children did for the next half an hour is unknown, but already at the beginning of the 11th, the Beaumonts were seen on the beach, where they played merrily. One witness told the police that their laughter was so cocky and loud that it seemed impossible not to pay attention to them. This was confirmed by Jane's school friend, who was also on the beach at the time. And the first witness remembered that a thin, fair-haired man in blue swimming trunks was watching the children. After several years of searching, a version will appear that he could be a lifeguard. Blue, bi-stripe trunks were the uniform of the Adelaide Beach Club employees, and in just a few minutes, he was connected to the game. According to the mother, it was impossible. With strangers, Jane always behaved very weary and distrustful, but the witness assured that everyone looked as if they had known each other for a long time. Later, Nancy will remember that one day Arna told her that her sister had a boyfriend on the beach. But then no one attached importance to this phrase, so it remained unclear whether it was true or an invention of the youngest daughter. Then the Beaumont children went to the nearest shop for sweets. The seller said that this time he sold Jane not only her favorite cookies, but also a meat pie, which the girl had never bought before. She did not say for whom she bought the pastries, but she paid with £1. This also raised many questions, because the mother gave the children 8 shillings and 1 pence, which could only be enough for travel. The police assumed that someone else had given the money to the children. At about 12 noon, the Beaumonts were seen leaving the beach with the blonde man. Another elderly woman was surprised that the stranger absolutely calmly helped the children to dress, although they were old enough and independent. Yes, and Jane was already at the girlish age when you would begin to be embarrassed by the male presence. But this time she was absolutely calm. The woman showed the investigators the direction the 4 people had gone. At about 12:15, the children and the man disappeared from the eyewitnesses' field of vision. But this was not the only testimony about the children leaving the beach area. There were several more people who saw the children. They also noticed children in the company of a blond man, but the direction in which the people moved was completely opposite. But the investigation did not give up. When the police had already compiled an identikit and was ready to voice the version of their mysterious companion had kidnapped the children. It turned out that there was another witness. Postman Tom Patterson assured investigators that he saw Jane, Arnon, and Grant about 2 or 3 p.m., away from the beach on the street leading to their house. There were no men with the children. The 3 of them were very cheerful and greeted the postman warmly. This testimony raised a lot of questions from the police. On one hand, the man really knew the children well, and the police saw no reason why he would want to harm the investigation. But on the other hand, Tom constantly changed his testimony. He could not decide whether he saw the children in the morning or at lunch, so his data raised even more questions. Tangled traces. The police had no other witnesses, but as the disappearance of the Beaumont children began to gain international notoriety, there was a plethora of new evidence that only confuses the investigation. It was known that a few months after the disappearance of the children, a woman called the police. She assured law enforcement officials that she saw 3 children accompanied by an adult man on the night of the disappearance near her home. She described how one boy tried to escape, but the man aggressively grabbed him by the leg and dragged him along with the others into an abandoned house. The police did not believe this testimony. There was a case in September of that year when Senior Constable Ron Groves allegedly accidentally listened in on a conversation between 2 women who were talking about the abduction of the Beaumont children. The police did a little check, but Groves was wrong. The women did talk about the missing children, but they had nothing to do with the matter. 2 years later, Jim and Nancy received 2 letters. The first was allegedly from their eldest daughter. You, Dad, will have to wear a dark coat and white trousers. By these signs, a person will recognize you. He says you should not tell the police about this, and if you tell them, he said that you, Father, can no longer come to the meeting. So please don't tell them if you don't know what Dan Dang Nong is. I'm sorry if I butchered that word. I'm not sure how that is pronounced. Then it's in the state of Victoria. We're all looking forward to seeing you next Monday. Please don't tell the police anything. This person does not want to harm us. We still love you both. With love, Jane, Arnett, and Grant. Another letter was from the guard of the children. Authorities of the letters reported that they were doing well, but asked for a meeting. Family arrived at the specified address along with the detective, but no one showed up there. 25 years later, fingerprinting showed that the letter was from a teenager who just wanted a joke. For help to otherworldly forces. It began to seem that the children would never be found. Parents shed tears day and night, washed their feet in search of the children in all the neighborhoods, but there was not a single clue that would lead to the trail. Then Jim Beaumont went on television. His appeal to the audience was riddled with pain and suffering. He begged the kidnapper to return the children safe and sound for any reward. He wept and begged for sympathy. I will continue to believe that the children are not dead, and I will cling to hope until there is any evidence to the contrary. Only caring viewers showed understanding. They cut off Beaumont's phone after the programming to express sympathy and support. On February 3rd, waiting for the tide of ebb, dozens of volunteers again and again combed the I'm sorry, I'm not very good at pronouncing these very long names. It's a river there, which flows through the suburbs of Adelaide. But there was nothing there either. For 6 months, the suburb of Adelaide continued to search for children, but slowly moved away from what had happened, until on November 8th, the famous European parapsychologist and psychic from the Netherlands, 57-year-old medium Gerald Crosser, arrived in the city. It was rumored that Australia was happier with his arrival than with the Beatles. First of all, Gerald visited the same Glenelg beach. He recorded his speeches on a dictaphone, asked parents for photos of the children and their personal belongings, whispered something under his breath, made cryptic hints to parents and journalists about the course of the investigation that no one could make out. The medium was a conductor of an orchestra of ordinary people. Either he will feel that the children are buried in one place and the volunteers are plowing the whole land there, then he changes his vision in an absurdly opposite direction. and assures that they are somewhere nearby. At some point, he will point to the burial, and people will dig up the belongings of the Beaumont children. Only later it turns out that these things were specially thrown there in order to find them. On the day of the disappearance of these items, the children did not have them with them. The police did not trust the medium and tried to stop him, but the public pressure was so strong that it seemed impossible. Until his death, Gerald Crosset will name places and people will dig up the earth. One day they will even have to break through the concrete that was poured at the factory on the day the children went missing. But this will not bring results either. The Beaumont family's nightmare. The search will continue for decades. Private detectives will put forward their versions. The police will periodically find strange things. An antique suitcase was found with newspaper clippings about the Beaumont children. But nothing will bring results. The Beaumont's family nightmare will never end. In one of the last high-profile interviews about the Beaumont children's case, a police officer said, "We will continue to do everything possible to find the Beaumont children and return them home to their families. I don't think there is anyone in the country who does not want to look for the Beaumont children." From 1966 until the last days, Nancy and Jim will be subjected to practical jokes and harassment. There will be whole groups of people claiming that the parents themselves kidnapped their children. In 1968, the couple will no longer appear in public, and in a few years, they will get divorced. But whatever their relationship, every day Jim and Nancy will be waiting for the return of their children. The children's bedroom of Jane, Arna, and Grant were left untouched in the hope that the children's laughter would reappear there. Nancy Beaumont passed away on September 30th, 2019. Jim lives in the suburbs of Adelaide. The case remains unsolved. Whatever happened to the Beaumont children is unknown. Alright, so that ends this video. This was found on the R Unsolved Reddit page by Dahara Hovich. It is from a different country, so the grammar was a little bit off, but I made my best to make it work. I want you guys to know that I did not write this. This is from the original post on Reddit, and I was just reading it. I really liked it, and I thought you guys would enjoy it too. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please like and subscribe, and I'll definitely make more like it. I'll see you guys all next time. Goodbye.